Ladies and gentlemen, tonight's performance is about to begin.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Speaking Freedom TV's The World of Sex. I am your host, Dr. Kaci, and today's special guest is Melissa. Hey, Melissa, how you doing today?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm doing well. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm Melissa. I'm the founder of Steamy Lit, home of the Steam Box. If you don't know about the Steam Box, we're a romance book subscription box that pairs romance books with vibrators and other self-care items. I was born in Peru. I served in the Navy for a few years, and now I'm running the Steam Box.
So, how did you get into the Steam Box business?
So pandemic 2020, I was working at home, and my ex-husband at the time was active duty deployed. And he was deployed that whole like COVID year. So it was just really me, myself, and I and my dogs. And I've always been an avid reader, but I really turned to romance. I think I've always known I enjoy romance subplots, but I didn't realize there was like whole romance books, if that makes sense. And so I really like started turning to romance books a lot. And as I'm reading some of the books, I'm noticing like the different sexual tension, sexual chemistry, sexual scenes. And I'm like, is nobody else horny when they're reading this? Like, nobody feels some type of way. No one-handed reading. Like, what are we doing? And I was like, someone should really pair romance books with vibrators. And a friend of mine was like, so why don't you do it? And I was like, And so it's kind of how the Steam Box came about. Just wanting to have more open spaces. Growing up in a Peruvian household, a Latinx household, we don't talk about sex, we don't talk about orgasms, we barely get like how babies coming to this world talk. And so it was really important for me to create a community where we can speak about just sex and orgasms and and just have a safe space to be able to do that.
So how did you get to packaging or selling the packaging of excuse me, books and the vibrators?
What do you mean?
It's one thing for people to go buy vibrators. It's another thing for people to go buy books. So how did you come up with the marketing to actually sell the books and the vibrators together? And then how did you go into the packaging of it, which is kind of all go together a little bit?
Sure. I think in both senses, right? There's like so much talking about sex or just like sex in books is such a taboo topic that I felt that it became then really easy to be able to kind of put both items in one box that would help you embrace your sexuality, however that is, right? And whenever I talk to folks, I always try to be conscious that like just because I'm out here, like throwing vibrators on in every video I make doesn't mean that has to be your level of comfort, right? I just don't want you to be ashamed. And I think that there's so much unlearning that as a society we need to do when it comes to the pleasure of women and just pleasure in general, that I think when pairing both of them, it was like it's the same thing with romance books. Like they're so taboo. There's so many people who look down on the genre. There's so many people who don't consider it even like reading because it's not smart enough, when I can promise you a romance book has taught me more about life than I don't know, The Power of Law or whatever that book is called. So it became then just a project all of its own to like say, can I curse on here? It just kind of became like a project all of its own on like to saying like fuck the patriarchy truly, and like why is it that when men talk about pleasure or porn or masturbating, it's like totally fine, but then when it comes to women, it's like all of a sudden dirty and shameful? No, it shouldn't be. Like orgasms are such a fucking wonderful thing that our bodies do. Like let's embrace that, let's talk about it. And yeah, that's kind of how it all came together.
So it's so funny when you mention just the coming together of it all, because as a sex educator and sex coach, I have a Twitter page that is specifically for sex. It's all I post on there. But I find it kind of taboo or difficult for me because um I'm selectively bi, meaning that I'm really straight. But every now and again, I might see a woman and be like, yeah, damn, she's fine. I might let her go down on me or something. But generally speaking, I have to kind of preface everything that I post because I don't want people to get carried away with their impression of me because of what I do for a living. Because I have to post everything. I don't just post straight sex. I post trans sex. I post, everything that is available because people need to be educated. And a lot of times for myself, you hear stories about people liking different things, and then you think, well, what happened to them, or why they like that? And really, what I found is some sexual stimulation is based on trauma, or surrounded by a trauma that may have, awakened that desire in a person. However, a lot of these people are in enjoyable situations where they're not being forced or, pushed into. This people that want different things. So when I came up with this show, I wanted to give an opportunity for people to hear what other people actually are into, because if not, then you think that, oh no, if it's not missionary, if it's not the way the Bible says it, then it can't be the right thing. And it's like, no, there are people that actually want these things. So
Right.
I am going to start asking you some questions about yourself and your sex life. I'm a veteran, so I just wanted to honor you as a veteran, from one veteran to another. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
So when did you start having sex?
I was probably 14. Yeah.
Was it a
14.
conscious decision?
It was a bad conscious decision, but it was a conscious decision nonetheless.
What was the most surprising thing that you learned in your sexual experience?
At the time, I don't think anything. However, like many years later, when I finally had an orgasm, I was like, why was I even having sex before? Like, why was I wasting my time? Like, those could have been numbers that like didn't even have to count, because like I at this point, if I don't orgasm, like, do you even go on the little blacklist? Probably
Right.
not. Like, and I think this takes it back to like this whole conversation of like not talking about orgasms, right? And what that is like. Early on, I put out some questions for the people that subscribe to our box, and a lot of their like vulnerability came from like the first time they orgasm, they had no idea that it was happening, right? And so like, yeah, I think that's one thing I learned, that I was like, why did I even
waste of time?
bother?
So,
Yeah.
are you a squirter?
I'm not.
Okay. No, it's not good or bad or indifferent. I think that everybody has the potential in them if they are sexually aroused enough and vulnerable enough with the person, that they can actually let it go. Because I didn't know what squirting was until my friend. I was like, every time I go have sex, I feel like I gotta pee, and I'm scared to let it go because I don't want to pee on the person. And they're like, no, that is it. You gotta let that go. And I did, and it was like amazing. It's like a feeling that it's like an orgasm on a 10th power, because before it's like you're holding it back a little bit. You like,
right.
I'm letting go. I feel it, but I can't, and
right. Yeah. It's definitely in my bucket list of things that must happen before I go to the other world.
So what is your wildest fantasy?
Oh, I would love to have sex in front of like a group of people.
Really?
Yeah, I think I would love to. And really, I didn't realize I was into that until I read a book that they were in like a sex club, and the couple was on stage, and like you can't really see the faces that are looking at you, but you know that they're all out
people.
there. And I was like, Oh my God, why hasn't this happened to me? Like, what stage can I get on right now? And that has made me kind of curious to like explore sex clubs. I was married up to like 6 months ago. So at the time I had talked to my ex about like, are these things that you want to try out? But it was a pretty like closed door conversation in that
Mhm.
sense. And so now that I'm in my single era, I'm like, I really need to look for sex clubs.
So would you offer classes on how to use vibrators as a seller of vibrators in the romance novel? Like would you I could see you doing like a whole event where you got somebody that reads the book and then somebody playing with their vibrator in front of everybody. That would be so hot.
Oh, that would be so hot.
That would be hot.
That would be so hot. I actually do. We always get questions about like, well, how do you use this? And thankfully, the like companies that I purchase from sometimes have like videos on like best practices, how to use
Mhm,
this, how to
mhm.
make this like the best experience for you. But I do think that like some vibrators should come with a manual of like, okay,
Mhm.
what exactly, like, where are we putting this and what's the best way to angle it? And obviously, you need to figure out what works best for you. But
Mhm.
sometimes you just don't even know like what goes
Where to
where.
start. And some vibrators are, very animated because they have multiple parts and layers. So what is the main vibrator that you sell? Like what is your high selling vibrator? Or do you have multiple? Like can you choose from vibrators?
Yes, you can choose from vibrators. We also sell them individually on our site. I would say that the Satisfier Pro 2 and the Rose are probably our main two sellers. I think the Rose, uh, as someone who has tried all of them at this point, I think that the Rose has just a lot of hype around there, but I feel like
Hmm.
there's a lot better products that do that exact same thing. Like the Rose is supposed to kind of like mimic foreplay where like the Pro 2 has the actual air pulse like technology behind it where
Hmm.
I feel like the Rose kind of starts turning into like a really quick vibrator all of a
Hmm.
sudden versus
Hmm.
like the air pulse technology. But I mean, they'll get you where you need to get. I do tell people though, if you're just starting out with that kind of like technology, maybe don't start with the Rose because the Rose goes from like zero to like snatches your soul right away. So like you need to be careful with the settings.
I am not a toy person. I like to feel myself.
Okay.
I like the way it feels. It's so wet, and I'd be like,
Mhm.
oh my God, now I know why guys go crazy. Okay.
Yeah.
So but I tried to be in the business and I don't think I use toys enough to sell toys. So it was kind of
Mm.
like because I'm not recommending anything major. It's just like me
Yeah.
going through the motions more so. But now that I am a practicing sex coach and educator, I was thinking about getting back into the novelty business. I just hadn't gotten sold on it yet.
Yeah.
So what is the wildest thing that you have tried?
The wildest thing that I have tried. Nothing I think like maybe sex in public.
What public place? What type of public place?
I was
Oh,
it
you the
was like
military. You supposed to be a little wild. Y'all ain't do it
oh
on the
wait,
boats or nothing.
I forgot about that. I don't even count the boat sometimes. I actually did have sex on the ship while we were out to sea. So that was an experience. We were in like one of the little closets in the forecastle. So that was interesting.
And let's talk about the public experience. What was where you don't have to give a specific location, but like what type of environment was it and what was that like?
It was behind a Kmart.
At a
And
Kmart? This had to
yeah,
be years ago because I don't even know where any
this
Kmart's is now.
was this was like in high school. Oh my God, mom, please don't listen to this. Um, yeah, this was like in high school, and I think it was just like one of those things where like there was nowhere else to have sex. And again, I'm like wondering why I like, ma'am, you weren't even orgasming, but you know,
I
you
mean,
live
at
and you
that age, it
learn.
just feels good, and normally, um, it makes you feel loved and seen. If not love,
Yeah.
the lust part of it makes you feel seen. So I mean,
Yeah.
I don't really fault anybody for having sex at whatever age, because it's something. It's really a healing mechanism, honestly, if
Yeah.
done right. But even when it's not done right, it still gives that same type of energy that is within it. So what is your kink?
I think I'm a praise girly. Like call me a good girl any day. And that's like my catnip. Like, please tell me I am a good girl. Probably tied to daddy issues somewhere in there, but yeah. And there's just other things that I've read, like bondage and just things like that I've read about in romance books that I'd love to try. But again, right, like I'm in this position of like I don't have a partner anymore, but I'm also so fucking busy that like I
You
can't
don't have
even
time.
bother to like date, like try, and I think that with different experiences or different kinks, you really have to have like a partner who you trust, right?
Hmm.
And I just feel like most of these men who are out in these dating apps are like not ready for that. Like they think that they are, but they don't know the proper, like, and someone told me like, why don't you join one of those like kink apps? And so that might be like my next because I feel like you will be with people in the community who respect the rules and the boundaries and aren't like like a wannabe person. You know what I mean?
So what I would suggest is a Facebook group. Like it's Facebook groups that have poly and or what they call lifestyle. It's like a swingers type of
Mm-hmm.
community where they um that's what they do is sexual pleasures trips where they go here in Atlanta, they go to the cabins, they have like sex capades. I'm not really one to want to have sex immediately after meeting somebody, so it's a little
Mm-hmm.
bit different for me because I have to kind of warm up to people before I
Yeah.
want to give myself away like that. But
Mm-hmm.
the purpose of me saying that is that in those Facebook groups or in groups on Facebook, you don't have to necessarily join an app as much as it is for you to just introduce yourself to those environments so that you can see what you would be comfortable with being around and stuff. That's what I do. I've been celibate for about 7 years. It'll be 8 years in May. I'm praying not to make it to 9, but after divorce, and then I had a little fling that lasted a little long time. But they both kind of went crazy a little bit and started like my ex-husband was like stalkerish. And then the other guy, when I didn't want to mess with him no more, he would still call me, but he was like threatening behavior. So it was just like, you know what? Maybe my pussy is too good and I just need to put it away for a little while. And then that went too far because, like you said, when you're busy, I have kids. So it's not really a
Right.
lot of time to carve out to even get to know somebody. But then because I was kind of practicing celibacy, I wasn't giving my opportunity to even introduce myself to people. It was like, if people try to talk to me, oh no, I'm good, thank you, but no thanks.
Yeah.
Like, kind of standoffish. So
I
it
think,
that
yeah, like post divorce has been interesting because I also think like I thought that once like okay, we've separated and we like lived together for a couple of months after we decided we were going to separate. I thought like okay, once I'm like by myself again, like I'm going to fully be out there, like spreading it wide open. Like it's my time to shine again. Because that's how I was prior to like relationships or marriage type of thing, but I feel like that's changed for me. And I think that that's what I'm interested in exploring. And when you said that about like, you don't, you need to get to know people before you give yourself to them. I was not like that before. But now,
yeah.
like, as soon as I like talk to someone or meet them and they want to go straight to sex, I automatically get like the ick. Where like before, I would have been all for it. And so it's really interesting how as different life experiences just kind of change what you like um and now I'm in this position.
Hi, I'm Dr. Kaci, not your typical clinical doctor. I am an ordained minister, but not your typical minister. I am also a certified life coach, love coach, sex coach, solution focused coach, transformation coach, and more. I have a whole lot of information that I would like to help you grow with. And I hope that soon I can help you be the best you that you can be. Confidence, spirituality, and purpose. That's wholeness, complete.
Of like, okay, well, I don't even want to leave the house most days. I work from home, I do everything from home. And my friends are like, girl, you need to actually leave the house to meet someone. And I'm like, but do I need to meet someone?
Right.
Like, you know?
It's definitely a transition after divorce, especially if you take some time now. Like if you're just trying to cover up your feelings and just jump into something else just to get over the other thing, then it's easy to just jump into something else. But it really is a transition from going with, like you said, I wasn't loose, but I was more receptive. I thought that being liked for my body alone was enough. And I was just always like, okay, like, but as I don't know if it's me getting older, having children, the divorce, just growing as a person, but I am the same way. And it's just like as soon as if a guy is too like as soon as he see me, and it's just the approach would make me be like, you don't even want to get to know me. You just see my ass and was like, oh yeah, let me get some of that. And I think some of it has to do for being pretty your whole life. If you've been pretty for a long time, then it gets old after a while. But people that are going and get this newfound pretty later in life, it's still like a charge for them because they're not used to that attention. So yes, I identify totally with you on that. Of course, you've had one night stands. Tell me about your wildest one night stand.
I don't. So what makes it wild is this man's voice. Like when I tell you that he talked like a chipmunk, but he was just like so beautiful, and he was like fucking huge. I mean, it was great sex, and this was like during my college years. But then I remember, obviously, I was drunk, and then like I remember the next day he called me and left me a voicemail, and I was like, no. Like I did not have sex with this. Like hey, when I tell you this man sounded straight up like a chip, I don't even remember his name, but
well, we wasn't gonna do the name anyways because we're not editing that. So.
Yeah.
Give me an example of how his voice was.
I can't even. It was just so like, it literally sounded like when you talk, when you like get helium. And he like that's
like
how
all the time he talked like that.
Yes, and I was like, good thing I was drunk last night because otherwise I wouldn't have gotten this good dick. And then yeah, I would say that's probably like wildest in that. Like the next morning, I was like, what did I do? I was drunk a lot in college, so that was a good time. College was a great little experience.
Listen, I didn't go to college because I went to the Army at 17, but that's how I kind of feel about the Army. Like I didn't have sex a whole lot in the Army, but I was drunk enough to where, hey, it was lit. So what have you learned about yourself as a person from your sexual experiences and encounters?
What have I learned about myself? I think a lot of it has to do with what we just talked about. That I think at a younger age, I don't know if it was enough for people to want me for just like my body, or like I wanted them to say I had a good pussy, or like like those rewards. Where like now I'm like, absolutely not. Like if you even like bring up sex in the first, like if you say come over, or can I come over, in the first day I text you, like it's a wrap. I'm not talking to you again, but I think that has come also from a place of healing, of like wanting to be loved and feeling that like sex or people wanting me for my body or like wet pussy or whatever was equated to being loved. And I think through later relationships in life, including my ex-husband, like I realized that there's so much more to being with a partner. There's so much more about a lifetime commitment than just being wanted for your body or for sex or whatever. And that's been really interesting to learn about myself, because I considered myself this very sexual person prior to, like, I was in a serious relationship, and then after I got out of that, like a few months later, I met my husband and I got married. And so like, I think prior to those relationships, I considered myself a very sexual person. And then I think through these two relationships, I healed a lot. And now I'm like, that's just not for me anymore. And if that's for you, let it be for you. Like, go crazy,
until you
do
burn.
you.
Like you will. I think you can get sexual burnout, not where you get tired of having sex, but the mindset around sex changes definitely.
Yeah.
Not for everybody. For some people, they wild till they ain't here no more. But for other people, like you said, as you evolve and heal, and if you start addressing those inner issues, it definitely changes how you see sex and how you experience it in general. So what is your sexual preference?
Men.
And your relationship dynamic?
Monogamy, I think. For a little bit, I thought, and I talked to my ex about this too. So obviously there were a lot of flags where like maybe sexually or just like relationship wise, compatibility wise, we were not there anymore. But I brought this up of like, okay, well, what if we tried maybe not polygamy, but like trying out a third, or experiencing a sex club, experiencing a different dynamic than what right. And it was quickly shut down, more of like, oh, I think like you're gonna get jealous, like I don't think you can do this. But like, how are we gonna know if we don't try, right? Like I feel like at that point when we had been married for 5 years, like we have this level of trust where like if we're both going into this after having multiple conversations, like why not, right? And so I don't want to say that I'm not open to that, because I think I would be, but again, right, like I think it depends on the partner, the experience, who you're bringing in. But I am intrigued.
Would you want your third to be a woman or a man?
That's a hard question. I think another dream of mine is like a double, like two men and me. Mm-hmm. What do they call it? Like an Eiffel Tower? Is that what they call it?
I don't know, but that's a good name for it if it's not what they call it. Like just you and two other guys, like a double penetration type.
Yeah, that would be sensational. And I think that that's what I would prefer. Maybe not. Maybe I would prefer a woman. And I think I say that more in the dynamic, I guess, of a relationship, because I like to have a lot of freedom in that, like, I don't want to be that person who takes care of the household, right? So like, and there's also days like I basically work 2 full-time jobs. Like, if you just want to get it in with our third, by all means, like, let me read my book over here and work on the business, and tomorrow, like, we'll get our time, you know? So I don't know.
Listen, when I think about poly, because my next question is actually your thoughts on poly. When I think about poly, my mindset started where you are at that moment where, okay, like, I got other things to do. So if you're talking about an in-house helper that's going to help with the dishes, help with the cleaning, help with the kids and shit, it don't sound like a bad deal. Like, right. And then I don't have to be worried about you sleeping around and out in the streets and, you know, having community dick. I know where you at and I can see you over there when I don't want to be bothered with you. Okay.
Right. Right.
So what are your thoughts on poly as a whole?
You know, I think I would strive to be like people who are in a poly healthy relationship, because I do think in past relationships I have been like very insecure, very jealous. And I admire people who can be in a healthy poly relationship, because that speaks volumes to me about like their level of trust, their level of communication, their level of care for each other. I think if it works for you, I think it's a wonderful thing. I also am not of the idea of like just having one partner for the rest of your life. Like, it feels a little outdated. Again, if that's for you, fantastic. But I like there's so many dicks out there, you know, like,
Right.
like having one for the rest, like, you know, like just test out a couple, test drive a couple others, you know. But I think really what I admire about poly relationships is that, like, if you're doing it right and you're doing it well, like, you're as a person, I feel like your level of like commitment, trust, like, have to
The
be
level
out
of
of this.
communication is the
Right,
most
right.
important part. From what I've witnessed as a sex coach, I definitely go into different groups and atmospheres for work, but I'm also a voyeur in the poly sex swinger world. A voyeur, somebody that like watches,
Mhm.
and that is more of my thing. Of course, again, because I don't just meet somebody and be like, "Ooh, I want to jump your bones." Like
Right.
it doesn't work like that for me anymore. But I definitely like the ideal of poly working for some people because it definitely can work for some people. It's actually older than monogamy. And it has a lot of um takes a village to raise a child type of vibes that I like. So you said you've never gone to a sex club or swingers party, but what is the things that you would look forward to the most going to those experiences?
Watching. I think I would really enjoy watching and learning. You know, like, I feel like, yeah, there's like so much porn you can watch. But like, unless you're watching like a homemade film, you're usually watching actors, right? And
Mm-hmm,
so, like,
mm-hmm.
I to be in the environment where it's real, I think, again, right, like, sex is such a taboo topic that most people are not really asking their girlfriends, like, hey, so when he put it in your ass, like, what happened? Like, was there a smell? X, Y, and Z, right? Like,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
and I've had very few girlfriends in my life who I have those levels of communication with. Um, so really, I think being able to like watch and learn would be something that I think I would be really into. But then also, like, the experience of being turned on by other people getting pleasure, I think really does it for me.
So I've last year I started going to some swinger sex party type of things, and it was very much a surprise at first because I didn't know I was going to this first one. I was like, this is a year of swimming pool parties. We're going to all the swimming parties in 2022. And I went to my first one, and it was a guy naked in the pool, and I was like, "Oh my god, why is he naked in the pool?" But nobody else was saying anything. Everybody else was cool, calm, and collective. So I couldn't say nothing out loud. I couldn't show any type of anything because it would make me feel even more out of place. But I
Right.
was like, okay. And then somebody explained to me how afterwards there's a playhouse where everybody goes in and kind of have sex with whomever is open to it. There's a lot of rules in the swinger lifestyle community. And I think that's what I like the most, but I like the environment. It's a lot of people that's not religious. They are not uptight. These are people that's loose and free and happy to be whoever they are with whoever they are at that time. And so that is one of the best things that I've seen in it. However, there are some sex parties that are more spiritual than sexual, and those are kind of cool too. It just takes a different approach.
Right.
I mean, I literally saw somebody having an orgasm without being touched physically, and it was like, wow,
Yeah.
learned something new.
I actually was thinking about this the other day because very long time ago I watched this like documentary of this woman who can make herself orgasm with just like thinking about it. Um, and I was like, wow, how do I reach that level of like mind to orgasm like communication? But yeah, I when I started researching sex clubs down here, that's what I really loved the most about it was the rules. And
Mm-hmm,
it was even like single men can only come in on certain days, or single
mm-hmm.
men have to be vetted by people who are already coming to the club. If you get one strike, you're like not coming back if you're a single man, basically. And just like how much what's the word I'm looking for? Like you had to say yes, right? Like there was so much of that
It's
in
very
the
consent driven.
consent. There we go. That's what I was looking for. There, like everything had to do with consent throughout the rules. And I think for someone who is new to that lifestyle or who's their first time attending that club, I think it's really comforting to see that, because you think sex club and you're like, am I going to be made to do things that I don't want to do or I don't want to participate in? But I mean, the rules are there for a reason, and it makes me more willing to want to try it because they're there.
Yeah, I definitely think that's what helped play into even me continuing to go and kind of cruise these events, because there are a lot of rules in place, and you say no, then that means no. And people have to, in most cases, ask for permission to even touch you in any type of way. Now, I did want to mention to you earlier, because you talked about with porn, it's a lot of generic type porn, but I'm be honest with you, Twitter has the best amateur porn, mostly because there's a lot of people that are advertising their OnlyFans and things like that. But these are people that's literally having like random sex, and even the things that are choreographed, like where you see the same people doing, as you could tell, it's like a genuine experience that they're just recording. And so that is probably one of my favorite places to watch porn. I used to be a Pornhub person until I discovered Twitter. One day I seen a dick and I was like, oh my God, I cannot believe
I was like, you can post dicks on Twitter?
Like, what? Oh my God. And then I clicked and scrolled and it was some live ass sex and my pussy got wet. And I was like, wait a minute now. And I actually had deleted Twitter for a little while because I was like, I cannot be on Twitter doing this. This feels dirty. And then I just submitted to that portion of it and created a whole page dedicated to, it's really about exposure type of therapy, so that if you see it, then one, if it's something that you like, you can feel comfortable asking somebody for it, because now you know it's not uncommon. But if it's something that you're curious about, you can also see, is this something I would really try or not, and that's what I think that porn should be used for, in addition to just educate each other on the possibilities of what's available, because in the world of sex, a lot of people think that there is not a lot available. They just think that, everything that's outlandish is something crazy or something got a problem. Everything isn't daddy issues. Everything isn't trauma based. Some things are just like, who doesn't want to be praised? Who doesn't want to feel loved? And, now when you talk about being whipped and all that, now that's a little bit different, but still, those are things that turn people on, and there's nothing wrong with whatever it is that you find arousing for you, because there might be things that you might watch, but that you might not want to do. And then there's some things that you want to do that you might not necessarily want to watch. It just is about what works for each individual person. So what is the most difficult challenge that you've had encounter in your sex life?
I think asking for what I want without feeling ashamed, or having those conversations of, let's go to a sex club, let's try a third, because I feel like there's this, especially for men, I feel like when you bring these things up, it causes them to feel like less than, or like they are not enough, when it has nothing to do with that, right? Because if it was the other way around, I bet you that they wouldn't be thinking of it that way, right? And so I think that that's what's been hard in probably the past like 6-7 years, is like really figuring out what I like, and there's a lot that I still don't know, but being able to ask for it without feeling shame. I feel like as I started this business, I do feel like I've almost come to an understanding with myself that like it's okay to feel these feelings, and it's okay to want to orgasm in different ways and try different toys and try different things that before maybe I wouldn't have asked for. And I think I still have a long way to go in that, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited for it.
Well, that's good. I'm excited for you, especially being fairly newly divorced. The world of exploration is awaiting you. So, if you could give a piece of advice to a listener around sex, of course, what advice would you give?
Make yourself orgasm. um, Figure out what you like first before you I don't even know if that's right. Like I don't feel like I regret experiences in my life because or sexual experiences in my life because they have eventually led me to this point, but I do feel that I wish I would have learned how to orgasm, how to touch myself, how to please myself first so that I can one like release that shame and two know what I want and what I want to ask for. So if like you have I think if there's anything I can tell anybody is like you try it out yourself before you start letting other people try for you because nobody's going to know your body better than you, and I think that that's how it should be. There shouldn't be another person that knows how you orgasm better than yourself.
Right. So tell us, how can we find you, your products, and keep in contact?
Sure. So our Instagrams for the business are at Steamy Lit and at the Steambox Co on Instagram and TikTok. And then if you just want to follow me, I'm on Book Rex by Mel on Instagram and TikTok.
Okie
Oh, and
dokie. Go ahead.
sorry, to shop for our products. I always forget about our website, which is like where we sell everything. It's steamylit.com.
Okay, steamylit.com. And can you give us your Instagram one more time?
Yep, Book Rex by Mel and Steamy Lit or the Steambox Co.
Okay. So I just want to say that it was a pleasure having you here on the show. Do you have any questions for me before you leave?
I don't. Thank you for having me. I love conversations like this, and I'm so glad that podcasts like this are happening and that people are listening to them because they're so needed.
Thank you so much. Again, it was a pleasure having you, Melissa. It was a great conversation, and that is the show for today, you guys. Until next time, bye.
Bye.
Hi, I'm Kaci, Dr. Kaci. Welcome to Speaking Freedom. We are happy to have you, and we hope that we are able to help you in every way possible. Have a good evening.